Hey guys, welcome back as we celebrate 5 years of the Basketball Teacher podcast. Seems incredible for me to say, but it really has been 5 years since I started this at the end of June in 2020. I started this podcast as a way to stay active and engaged and involved with coaching and basketball during the pandemic. I told myself I wanted to connect with coaches. I wanted to hear what their stories were, hear what their experiences were, hear about the things that they were passionate about. And I told myself I was going to do it for 1 year. And if I still liked it after a year, I would continue to do it. And then year two came, year three came, year four came. And here we are celebrating 5 years. Truly remarkable. And I couldn't do it without all of you. I couldn't do it without all of your support, all of the great feedback you guys give me about topics you want to hear about, or the comments you leave me about what you got out of each episode. All of that stuff is really inspiring to me, and it keeps me bringing these episodes to you each and every Monday. So I am so excited to be celebrating 5 years. Thank you to all of you who have supported on PayPal. There's a QR code on our Twitter and other social media pages. You could also go onto PayPal and search up B-Ball Teacher Pod if you wanted to donate and show your support to the show. I would truly appreciate that and would love to give you and your program a shout out if you do. But again, thank you guys so much, whether you've been with us from the very beginning, whether you just started joining us. I'm so excited that we are now celebrating 5 years of this show. And like always, we are going to celebrate our 5 year anniversary by looking back at the last year's worth of episodes. As always, I'll play a little clip from every single interview over the past year to celebrate all of the great conversations I've been able to have with my guests over the past year. So enjoy. Go back in the archives if you want to listen to any of those episodes. Thank you again for all of the support that you've given me and all the support that you've given to the show. And onwards we go to year 6. See you guys next time.
Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Yes. I think when Texas Tech made they run in the Final Four.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yes, it's when they were doing that at a high level. We kind of started doing it. I coached with the guy at Fishburne Military School who did a lot of the Virginia kind of pack line defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always thought that if you could minimize a team's ability to ball reversal, get to their second and third options, it just makes sense that you make it easier for your defense.
Which increases participation. As far as the youth, like 2nd through 6th grade, I'm available is what I would say. I'm available and I'll give advice on we could do this, we could do this. And I coached, my son and daughter from 1st grade to 6th grade or whatever. In those early ages, having them remember an offense from practice to the game day it's a pretty tough deal, So the coaches are usually parents, and they're providing an opportunity for kids to just play and love the sport, in a competitive nature. And I'll give advice if they ever ask or whatever. But are they running what we're running at the high school and everything? No, they're not. They're getting movement. They're finding space, learning defensive concepts. Just they're learning basketball and they're playing basketball, which I think is huge, and they get to play.
Have to be able to do some things that are not scripted, girl moving from spot to spot, that can cause defense problem. And I think all the best teams do that. I think the next thing is just once you have the advantage, right? So you've generated it, it's making quick decisions. This is something we talk about all the time is what we call it 0.5 seconds, right? So anytime we have an advantage and you catch the ball, we want to make a decision in 0.5 seconds. I think the one thing that can really allow defenses to get back into the picture is holding the ball, right? It allows help side to move over. It allows on-ball defense to improve. So I think catching it and making quick decisions, whether that be shoot, pass, drive, whatever it is, we just want to do it quickly. So in a nutshell there, we definitely have some sets. We try to add some layering, and then at the same time incorporating some actions that we can run when the defense is at neutral. We try to have a blend of those areas. And
those early mornings in the winter, where you're getting up at 6 a.m. and it's cold, you're opening up the gym, it's just you and your coaching staff, right? You feel like, hey man, I've seen probably 2 teachers from this school come watch their student athletes come play. Right, and you start thinking about these things, and I tell people all the time, like, what is the participation in school? Now, student athletes, faculty, staff, what are we doing? Are we doing jersey swap days with our faculty and staff with our student athletes? What are we doing, right? Like, are we not just investing the money, but are we investing the time? Are you allowing me to have a tournament, host a tournament here so we can make revenue for the school? So we can make revenue for our booster club, for our fundraiser. Are you investing in the kids outside of this? Are you investing in my staff? Are you allowing me to go take my staff into coaches clinics year round? Are we able to do 1 or 2 coaching clinics through the year?
Drills, we kept a chart to see, weekly who hit the most shots, who did this, who did that. So, if you got any kind of competitive nature, you tend to get your juices going a little bit more when you find out somebody had a certain number. So I like to do that. I like to also add incentives. So who it might be a sprint. Like whoever wins this last sprint, you get this, you get that. It might be a Gatorade or something. It could be something as small as that, where you're putting some incentives in there to try to keep things fresh, keep things new. Obviously competition is a part of the sport, so I always try to keep competition at the head of it, because that's why we're in it. Everybody you're playing against is trying to beat you. And then lastly, sometimes I like to get the players' input themselves.
If you're still not really sure where we want to be, you need to know where you want to be. The whole team doesn't need to know, but you as a coaching staff should know what you should want to accomplish by every point of that season. And we actually do that too. So you talked about the trimesters. We break it down a little differently, but it's similar. So we break it down in phases. So phase 1 is kind of what we talked about, when you're practicing in September and so forth and like that. Phase 2 is when you get into non-conference season, and it's like November and such. Phase 3 is conference play. And then phase 4 is postseason if you get there. So we tell them that ahead of time. But as a coaching staff, before we even start in September, we do our coaches meetings and get together on what our goals are for the season. But we talk about, hey, by phase 2, we better be able to do this, and this.
To the youth, and not only to the student athletes, but to the parents, man. Because, some of them don't have all the advice, and some are misguided. Or they just don't know, because, how could you know about something if you haven't actually done it, right? So I'd say for me, when I talk to these student athletes, man, and have these conversations, it's a process, because there's a difference between, talking to these kids about, hey, they say, I want to go play at Duke or UCLA, and I want to go to the NBA one day. And then it's like, that's great. I want to push every kid to try to pursue their dream. But then you also kind of have to have that middle ground balance of, okay, where are you at right now? To how do you get, to reach those goals?
How much am I going to score? What are we going to do offensively? Am I going to get better as a player and get recruited? That's really what most people is with. And, and I have to be honest in that meeting too. If you tell somebody they're, oh yeah, you're going to score 20 a game and take as many shots as you want to, and then you come out there and coach differently, well, you weren't honest either. So I think you have to be honest in those meetings. And I'm very honest. I say, hey, look, we got 5 really good guys. If we're doing what we're supposed to do, probably everyone's going to average around, 11, 12, 13. And you have to be okay with that we have too many good guys for one guy to just be taking all the shots and averaging 25 points a game. Because then we're not using the best, we're not doing what's best for our team. And we got to be unselfish. We got to understand that everyone else has goals, and so do you. And we got to be willing to help them reach their goals. My college coach used to say, help somebody else get what they want.
Guys who love playing for me are the guys who love the work, guys who love the grind, guys who are not afraid to be coached, afraid to be called out. And, guys who have left my program are, generally are just guys who just don't want to work every day. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't like losing kids, man. And I wish every kid could play for me. But generally the guys who don't make it in our program are guys who just don't love the work, or guys who don't love the intensity, guys who don't love to be called out, guys who just, aren't here for the long run. And I think that's a part of it, man. I mean, you show me any great program, I guarantee you, like, they can show you guys who left because they just weren't meeting the standard. And, we're not looking for that, but that's a part of it. And leadership is sacrifice. Like, leadership is accountability. And, you got to be able to take some of those things, man.
Making shots and making the open shots first. And that's just standstill. We're not even talking about dribble moves or anything yet. Stationary shooting is where I think you have to start at any age level. I see too many kids nowadays who want to shoot off the dribble, take 7 dribbles, and then shoot a fadeaway shot because they saw Luka Doncic do that. What they don't see is when Luka Doncic is in the summer and he's just on a shooting machine, catching and shooting, not moving. I think that's the basic level of shooting. Catch and shoot. Catch and shoot, it's the only thing you have to worry about. It's like in teaching, if you're teaching math, you're going to teach adding before multiplication. So you need to do the easy things first. So catching and shooting is where we go first. Don't worry about anything else but putting the ball in the hoop. When you can do that 80% of the time, then we can start talking about dribble moves.
Couldn't get a direct answer. And it's, to create an advantage or get 2 on the ball, which then creates an advantage, right? If you make the right read. And even just simple things like that. As a player, I was just a spot-up shooter, so I never even thought of it. What's the point of a ball screen? It's the first question somebody probably should be asked. Because it happens the most in the game. What's the point of it? And, being a video guy, it's so obvious now where the right reads are. And I was never a point guard, so I never saw those reads. So being in video now, it slows down. The game just slows down. As you, I'm sure like when a senior sees the game a lot slower than a freshman would. And I think right now, just from a concept perspective, the game's slowing down for me, and it's been fun.
I think one thing I've been working on a lot lately, I've been thinking a lot, is I had a lot of guys who want to play really fast, but helping them understand how we can score fast and efficiently in the full court. One of the things I picked up from some of the folks that's talking to yesterday, Krikorian, was this game called 100, where every time you score, whatever time is left on the shot clock, that's how many points you get. So, for example, let's say you get a steal, a long rebound, and then a steal, and you're able to score in the first 5 seconds of possession. You're going to add 30 points to your point total, and you're playing to a particular total. So helping understand, if we can create these unique situations where we create these number of opportunities in transition, this is what we can reward. And those are the kind of shots, if I'm thinking as a coach, what are the most efficient offenses, and the whole hot buzzword of it's a lot more efficient when you play faster. It's about more 100 efficient shots, helping them understand it. However, within that game, it still teaches the idea if we can't get anything early, we can still get into our action.
And that's why, I don't know how much you know about the basketball down in Florida. But when I moved down here, I was amazed by the athleticism that the players had, way more so than what I was used to when I was up in Illinois. But the thing that the Midwest, or Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Ohio, all the just that area of the country, for me, they had such a higher IQ and they understood how to play the game. And so what I realized was either it's too cold in the winter, so all they got to do is go to the gym, where the people in Florida, we're going to the beach. I don't know what it is. Maybe it has to do some of that and also some of the coaching. And so, that's kind of where I start with my practices to help build the philosophy, is really break it down. And just like you said, don't walk in assuming that they know how to do all these things.
Especially in high school basketball, you need to learn how to play. Like, I don't want to teach kids plays. I want to teach them how to play. Everybody has such a great feel for the game now, from when they started. Before, like, they didn't even know what the sideline or the block was, and now they're out there, doing back cuts, player cuts, screens, pin downs, all these things. And, we're not even telling them to do it, So, I got lucky with kids that, give us everything that they have and want to learn and ask great questions, and they've learned how to be great basketball players. And so I'm sure that's going to change. I might run into a group where we need a little bit more structure, but right now I have, a point guard that reads the floor great. I have a player who just won Player of the Year that hustles every play, rim runs hard, and is a phenomenal athlete. And, we have a couple other second teamers that are great athletes and really smart players and know where to be. And so I don't want to hold them back.
For my guys, I like to press a lot. I want my guys to be in shape, conditioned enough so we can press teams as much as possible. And I think early on in the year, we were trying to find our identity, whether or not we were a pressing team, I would say. But I think as the season got going and underway, I think the points where we kind of thrived in was those pressure moments where we were picking teams up 94 feet, whether that was in a man press, zone press, trying to cause turnover, trying to cause some type of havoc, trying to get us out in transition, especially with a team that's, I would say we probably were full of guards. I would say we had maybe one big, and then we had a lot of maybe wings, but that played forwards. But at the next level, there'll probably be wings. And
what are you going to do against the ball screens at the top of the key versus side ball screens? Or are you going to guard those differently? So 3-on-3 is how you work on that, and then you build out into your 5-on-5. And then I think you've got to do shell drills, and you got to do disadvantage shell drills. You got to do the 3-on-4s where your guys are learning how to just scramble and to help. Because we can practice all the stuff we want, and we all know that once the game starts, the chaos happens, and you're going to get beat. You're going to mess up your ball screen coverage. They're kids. You're going to mess up your dribble handoff coverage, and you're going to have to help, and you're going to have to recover, and you're going to have to do it from weird angles. So I think doing disadvantage shell drill where those kids just have to flat out learn how to sprint and scramble and protect the basket, and that is something else you got to do almost every day.
Everything in. And for us, that was just a great way to decompose and just really just kind of compartmentalize the day and help us kind of reach the next step in the day, which was starting practice. And there was always humor involved with it, and it was a great way for the players to get to know each other more, but really for the kids to get to know the coaches more, and hear their answers to whatever question of the day it was. And it would always spark, great conversation, and then, different opinions, and then you kind of have some playful banter back and forth. And so I try to do that with my teams as well now, of starting with a question of the day. And I'll either have someone come, one of the players come bring one, or, I'll think of one myself for that day. But it's just a great way for players to kind of get to know each other more, and for us to kind of start the practice. But I think in terms of the more nitty-gritty answer to that question, I think a big thing is just keeping the flow of your conversations with your players two-sided and keeping it conversational.
That doesn't mean they're going to be Russell Westbrook next year, but they can definitely get quicker feet, get stronger, and with quickness and strength, I think kids become a lot more confident. And I think that's something that's really important in today's athletics, to make sure your kids are doing. Because even when I was at Lenape, we didn't hit the weight room every day, and I think today it's really important to make sure you're doing that. I think that's a really good thing, especially if you're in a state like mine where you can't really get them into the basketball gym in the fall and the spring. That's something we are allowed to do in the fall and the spring is the weight room training, right? So I think that helps a lot. And then it's kind of going to be about culture building, and the culture building, whether it's, you know, a bowling outing we go to, whether it's starting a booster club that we don't have yet at Maple Shade, and I would like to get started so we can fund our summer league teams, fund our NJ Live and Philly Live tournaments that we have here in my area, right? I think those are really important things to kind of set that culture going. And then, you know, you talk about where these kids can play every day.
After the game, I was like, look, man, like, I love you, but like, you can't do, there's a time and place for everything. And I think that's something that this year's team, they still talk about. They're like, man, if we wouldn't have done this, like, we would have won that game. It's really, being a player's coach is really all about your culture. And I think it's easy because being a 30-year-old coach that I can listen to the same music as them, which I may not listen to all the music they listen to, but I can listen to the same music with them and I can relate to them with that. Or like this summer, I was talking to one of our point guards during the NBA Finals, and I was like, look, when Luka comes off these ball screens and he's snaking the ball screens, putting the defender on his back, like, that's something you could be working on every single day. And he was like, oh yeah, like, even high schoolers can do that. I'm like, yeah.
Both. I mean, I think every group is different with that. And I think last year's group we had was, I mean, they were constantly, and I'm sure at the school, every kid's got a Chromebook and they can get on Huddle and they can watch film. And I happened to walk into two kids' classroom last year. I had to talk to the teacher and said, what are you guys watching? They spun their Chromebooks around, they're watching film, you know? I mean, so I think that's something that's gotten more handy. You know, when I was a kid, you didn't have that option because it wasn't as accessible as it is now. Well, every game is now streamed somewhere if you just look for it. Right. So I like them to watch film, but at the same time, what they're watching for and what I'm watching for is probably two different things. So
guessing games, and there's been times where I've been on the side of it where I feel like I'm trying to read the head coach's mind. I think it's super important for you as an assistant, as a staff, if a staff is working on scouting reports together, to obviously do that front loading work of what is important to us, what do we need to know about opponents, because then you can go and it makes scouting easy. I'm answering these questions, I know, and you can even like format. So we had a system, our system in Sulphur Springs and Allen was super consistent. You know, the way that we tagged things in Huddle, okay, for offense and for defense and for special teams and for personnel, which made it really easy to create our playlist that we wanted the guys to see. And then, if you know the expectations and you communicated that from the beginning, it makes it super easy to just basically fill in those blanks. And it makes every scouting report, very similar.
Trying to force guys to sidelines and baselines and we wear out, where help come from, help the helper, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to and really making a full, 5-man team defense.
So now when you were putting in the no middle, kind of talk us through then, what was the process of teaching it, installing it? How did you kind of get your guys to understand the concepts that you wanted and kind of build up their understanding of the defense?
Yeah. So again, like I said, it started just trying to be a student of the game as best as I could. Watching, I know everybody's probably seen, I think the accounts like Hoop Vision 68 or something like that. That guy's always doing film breakdowns of programs. And so watching those films on Baylor and Texas Tech of what their no middle concepts looked like, they're showing game clips, practice clips, talking you through it. And then also I stumbled upon a college coach at Centenary College.
And really what I do a lot of is I'll listen to podcasts on the brain, how the brain works. Just kind of keep up to date with just any psychological website that I like that talks about different emotions and those things, because really every emotion is its own trigger in your brain and just the chemical responses that you have. And sometimes it's really, just those chemical responses are just getting the better of you, and that's why you're acting the way you're acting. And sometimes it's good to just take a step away. Like I'm totally okay with if a guy is emotional during practice, I'll tell them, hey man, step outside, take 20 seconds, breathe, catch your head, and then get back into the drill. Like, it's okay. Just settle yourself in, breathe a couple times, and then come back out and be ready to compete when you come back out.
So when we do shooting drills or not, I would say a very small percent of the shooting drills we do are wide open. A lot of them have, if we're on the shooting machine, a lot of times that's when we'll get our open shots up, when we're just kind of catch and shoot, or we run around a chair or a screener and put up shots, or a guy in the middle gets the ball and he's passing, and, that's when we shoot open. But in a practice setting where we're not using the machine, all the shooting drills we do are reading and reacting what the defense gives you. So if there's no hand up or there's no contest, that's what I classify as a green light shot. That's a shot that all 12 guys on the team can take. I'll never tell a kid he can't shoot. Even if he goes 0 for 100, keep shooting. Because
I need you to do what you need to do for us to win. Shooting threes is not going to help us win. But if on a screen and roll, you're rolling and not popping, that's going to help us, because now you get into the paint, you're causing confusion. The defense don't know how to react. You get a layup, or the person that comes off the screen, they got a jump shot. Or they can pitch it to someone else in the corner who have a good shot. So just be able to read the game correctly, having them mimic stuff that's going on. And we do a lot of running, so putting them in positions where their body is I don't know if I could do this anymore. I don't want to do this again, but I'm going to do it because this is going to help us win. So having them shoot free throws when they're tired. I think that's something that I learned as a player, that the best time, you should see who you are when you're fatigued. When the game is close, you're fatigued, then you need a free throw. You need a stop. You need someone to dive on the floor for loose balls, those things like that.
Sure, even doing a drill as simple as weave, right? I'm a big believer in weave for the passing, the catching, and the conditioning. And I'll get on the guys if you're bobbling, or if you're not running hard, or if you're throwing, I call them lollipop passes, where you just little soft lobs. Those ones drive me crazy, but we definitely do that. And then when we go live, we'll have times where we call it turnover games, where if you turn the ball over, you're subbed out, and then you have to go to the end of the line or end of the bench, and you're going to have to wait a while before you come back in, because there's some guys ahead of you on the bench that it's their turn next. So that's one way to reinforce the positive behavior, is understanding you're going to be out a while if you do turn it over. And then sometimes we'll go live and we'll do these 7-point games, or 2 turnovers, whatever happens first. So if a team turns the ball over twice, that's the game. They're out, new team comes in.
I'll be honest, and like I said, sometimes I wonder what I was thinking this, but I was a young coach. I almost thought that's how I had to be based on seeing other people coach. And also with being young, that's how I was going to get the respect. But also what's helped me is being a teacher. How I build a relationship with kids in my classroom is kind of the approach I've taken with building rapport with my athletes. Naturally, I am not a hothead. I'm not as much of a screamer as I tried to train myself up to be. I have more of a lax personality now, and then also just being more relaxed, seeing the game now too. I don't coach with so much emotion. I look and I see the game more clearly. Instead of, worry about what's going on, and then, we're throwing a little temper tantrum on the sideline. We've all been there. It's looking at, all right, my breath on this. What can I do to change this? Because obviously there's times where we get in games where we all feel, oh, this just isn't going right, or oh, these calls aren't going our way. But
is our perimeter movement drill, where our offensive players pass the ball around the perimeter while our defensive team shifts accordingly, because everybody's moving into, everybody's shifting. The drill reinforces the principles of constant movement and teaches defenders to read the offense, anticipate passes, don't over-anticipate, but anticipate it, know it's coming, be ready for it, and react accordingly. So we also implement specific trapping drills where we position offensive players in corners and practice initiating and executing traps effectively. This helps our players recognize when to apply pressure and, how to communicate during double team situations. So by simulating and, situating these game-like scenarios, we prepare them to, insignificantly during actual games. Rebounding drills are essential as well that we do. We simulate game situations where players must box out. Because
it's not just shooting, right? It's can you put yourselves in game situations? And we try to make every shooting drill that we do a competition. And so that whether it's you 5 guys are competing against these 5 guys, or even you're individually competing against this other guy at your basket, we try to make everything a competition, which when you put a time factor involved with it too, that does kind of encourage them to shoot the ball quickly, which would put you in more of a game type situation, right? We've had a few situations and where you're a really good shooter be wide open, but so often you got to work really hard to get those good shooters open, and they get a split second to make that decision or to get that shot up. So we want to kind of simulate that as much as possible in the games, and we want every shot you take to be worth something, right? To put a little, whether it's pressure or competition, however you want to view it.
I mean, the film doesn't lie, So when you show somebody, it's like, you think that you're doing something good here, but really, like, this is why we keep telling you to do something else. So I think that's a huge advantage, just having that film and showing them. It's like, hey, I'm not attacking you. I just want you to see it from a different perspective. Because a lot of times, as coaches, like, we get wrapped up in the game too, and I go back and watch film and I'm like, oh my God, I look like an idiot right there. Like, so it's really helpful to see that other perspective. And so, different guys react to criticism differently. Some kids you can get after, and some guys, and it has to be a one-on-one where you're kind of breaking down film with each other. And that's kind of something I learned too. We used to do film sessions, whole team, and you might call a guy out in front of the whole team, and you may not really be aware of how he takes that or not. And so one thing that I've tried to, start integrating is doing small groups of film.
That's really important, man. Like, for example, when I first start training a player, like if it's a brand new player, I try to get to know him, like, what school do you go to? Why did you start playing basketball, or when? And why do you want to train? Like, what do you want to get better at? What do you think your strengths and weaknesses are? Or what do you think is something outside of basketball you need to work on? And some kids will say, oh, the mental side, like, of the game, like, I just don't have confidence. Or some kids will be like, oh, like, coach, like, I'm failing my classes and I can't even get playing time. I can't even get on the court because I'm not passing my classes. So it's just like the relationship part has to come first before these kids can trust your development. Because any trainer or coach can be like, all right, guys, let's do this drill. And I just want to see your progression. But if you're building a relationship with these guys, like, they're going to give more effort in these drills.
It kind of hammers home pretty quickly with the guys. When it comes to drills and practice, I like doing quick transition drills, 3-on-2 with a trailer, 2-on-1, that type of stuff where they have to make quick decisions, where it's not like it's fast break type style. And then when we do play half court, I love 5-on-5 in the half court, just like giving them a set, or giving them a framework and allowing them to play out of their own instinct, and fostering that. And when it doesn't happen, when a guy holds the ball too much, I'll stop it and be like, you can't back out the ball for 3 dribbles, or you put in a rule where it's 2 dribbles max, because at 2 dribbles, nobody can sort of stand there and stop the ball a lot, right? So it's like, you put in rules to emphasize really what you want, but a lot of the times I try to let them be creative and let them play off of their own instinct.
The individual pieces of it when the ball is on a certain side. I would say then we do a lot of 5-on-0 to kind of piece it all together. And then, and then eventually you're bringing them all together 5-on-5. It's amazing how early on, how chaotic that looks. So then you got to get back to, individual sides, 5-on-0, and then eventually it starts to look better and better with 5-on-5 settings. We do record our practices, so we're able to show the ladies on film what we're looking for, have some whiteboard sessions as well, which we found that actually helps bring clarity quite a bit. We do have some ladies come in for individual film sessions too, But yeah, all of that helps. Some are visual learners, some have to rep it. So just kind of using whatever methods we can to help instill that offense, because it's different than what they ran last year. And then obviously for most of our freshmen, it's completely new. So yeah, that's just a lot of different ways, small-sided games.
Had a great coaches clinic. We brought in John Calipari, Mark Few, Jeff Capel, Bob Hurley, senior high school coach, I think. And one of the things that was great, I listened to Mark Few talk about how every day they work on, because they're a big ball screen team, they work on all the different reads that they'll see every day. So he talks about, like, we'll see some teams will blitz the screen. This is what we do against it. And we work on doing that all the time. Some teams will hard hedge. This is what we do every day. It's just about making people feel comfortable with what you're going to do. So once you have your offensive system in and how you're playing, I think it's about those repetitions to make people feel comfortable. I do a lot of different drills with our point guard where, a lot of people do the shell drill. We do a shell drill where, the defense is behind the offense and he drives into the defense.
But I mean, this guy he's yelling, he's sweating already. We just walked in the gym and, what's up? Like, what's up with him? I know a lot of them said that. So, I just would every day yell at, it's a great day to be a Mustang. It's a great day to be a Mustang right before we break down. And before I knew it, I had one kid do it. He surprised me because we were clapping and right when I was getting ready to say it's a great day to be a Mustang, here he goes yelling at the top of his lungs, it's a great day to be a Mustang.
Hey, that's great.
So I was, this is catching on. So, after a few more days of it, now there's two kids. One kid would say it, then another kid would say it, and it's, oh my God, it turned into it gave me chills, it gave me goosebumps. So now when we start practice, that's a huge part of our practice. We start that and that's how we kind of get the energy going. And, I have 3 or 4 kids, they take turns. Sometimes they kind of jump on each other, vocally trying to be the person to yell.
So many players, when they receive a pass, they'll catch it and their fingers will be pointed away from them.
Away from it, yeah.
Yeah, and well, if you're gonna be locked and loaded, if you're gonna load that wrist, your finger's gonna be pointed up. And we try to get in that situation, and then from there, it's really just elbow drive until you follow and finish. And we try to keep it very simple and don't try to overcomplicate things. But from there, all the shooting that we do is we want volume. We want them to get up shots. We want them to get up a lot of shots. As a college student, that's hard to do at times, but they record shots every day with the coach. Coach requires them to get X amount of free throws in and write down whatever it is. For example, she wants them to make 50 free throws a couple days before the next game.
And so that's kind of really how I developed it, was just like learning, listening through a lot of things, listening to sermons and podcasts like yours, and and just really just think like, okay, like what coach do I really want to be, but like also like who do I want to be at the end of the day? So that's kind of how I developed it. And then like in turn, like to help others with their foundation, it's really cool. Like in our class, like, I kind of give them questions to kind of like make them think about like, what is their coaching philosophy? It's basically their finals a glorified show and tell. They bring in an object that means something to them. So like, and I do the same assignment too. It's not like I'm giving them this assignment and, I'm just kind of sitting in the back and just listening. No, I do the same assignment with them. So I love shoes, and I've kind of gotten into like designing shoes. I'm not great, like like you kind of see like a couple weeks ago for the NFL, the My Cleats, My Cause. I'm not at that level, but like I try my best.
And we can talk about this later on. Is I wish they would stop playing zone defense in the summer, man. I wish they would. I think there's a place for zone, but I'll tell you right now, in the summer, we're trying to develop kids. We're trying to get them to learn foundational things of the game. Even if they're varsity, we're still trying to do that. And I don't see a 2-3 being very helpful in the summer when you're playing that all summer. I don't see that being very helpful in teaching somebody how to truly guard somebody. So I wish they would stop doing that too, man. I mean, I could go on this whole 40, something minutes left of talking about why we shouldn't play zone so much. It happens, right?
Preaching to the choir to me. I'm a man person as it is, so
good,
I get
and it should be that way, and I wish a lot more coaches followed that. But when you're a 5th grade team and you're trying to win games to get your clout up, a 2-3 isn't a bad choice for you.
I coach 15U. Well, last year was 14U girls, and I want them to be able to start learning the game, not from just the sets perspective, because I feel like they become robots.
Robotic, yeah.
And so I allow them to play games off of concepts. So last year, we ran a lot in the beginning. We ran some Princeton stuff, and it was kind of like, it was stuff that my cousin was running, and we were trying to have each team run the same offense. And that's when I really was like, all right, we can't do this, because in the game, my girls can't make the chin pass. Like, they can't make it to the elbow. For some reason, they throwing the ball over their heads. It's like a turnover every time we try to initiate the action. So I had to switch it, and it took us probably a month and a half before I switched it to a dribble drive motion, but it took me at least probably 3 or 4 weeks before I could understand the actual movement patterns within it.
And they don't really know a lot about travel ball. So the best thing I can suggest is do your research, try to talk to people other than the coaches, people around the program, people who used to be with the program, people who played for this coach, things like that, because you want to do your research, because what you're going to typically hear is, hey, we want your son, we're going to build our team around him, we're going to make sure he gets the looks and gets the exposure. You're going to hear that from coach after coach after coach after coach. And then when you realize that, he's told this to 10 parents, and every kid that comes on his team thinks they're going to build the team around him.
Yeah, they're going to be the guy. Yeah.
So you really got to do your research. And then don't think you're locked into anything. Like, everything is, subject to change.
One thing that I learned, I've been able to go up and watch Jake Diebler is the coach at Ohio State, and I was able to establish a connection with him there when he got the job. And one of the things that I learned from them is they talk a lot about shrinking the floor. And I really didn't understand that term until I watched a couple of their practices. But, there are certain players that you'll go against at the high school level who are really good off the dribble. And, one thing that we've implemented from that is shrinking the floor. So, for example, when that guy catches the ball, whether it's on the wing, top of the key, corner, we're going to take a step. Typically we'd be in the gap halfway between the ball and our man. We may take an extra step toward that guy and kind of close the gap, or he doesn't have room to drive. So those are the type of things, specifically based on personnel that you can implement. Another thing is, if you're playing against a team that has really good corner shooters, you may not want to help off the corner on a drive. If that guard gets beat, he's got to do his job.
Yeah, that's what I learned, especially because I used to work out myself. I never had a trainer. So it's kind of with me, it was when I was playing and stuff, I used to just be in the gym grinding from I'd probably say and no kidding, I'd probably say from 5 p.m. to late night, whether I'm in the gym, LA Fitness. Yeah. So it's the thing is, I always work myself out. So I kind of understood how to reach that level of just consistency. Because the thing is, I've consistently done it to where I've been on my last legs or not having enough fluids and stuff like that, So it's doing it tight is the best way. And it's the more reps you get of that, the more mentally stronger you become and the more prepared you are for battle, Because like I said, you're trying to sharpen your iron.
Rather than actually invite feedback and ask where are we at? Where are we at as a guys, talk to me, right? Instead we sort of look at, okay, our effort hasn't been great or our energy seems down. And then we sort of build the narrative around that and then project that narrative onto our guys. And one of the things that when we do film sessions, which I think most coaches are doing film sessions, right? I tend to try and start those film sessions by just asking, not about what we're going to watch or anything, but where are we at? How are we feeling? And what it does is it either validates and confirms my sense of where we might be, or it challenges that too. Sometimes I've been wrong. I feel like we're really discouraged and our confidence is really low, and then I discover like actually they're pretty okay.
So we're really big on, there's not a lot of downtime in our practices. It's going to be, again, high level, high energy. Our coaches coach with a lot of energy because it starts at the top. We have to come in and be the energy givers to get a practice going. So yeah, we'll go from, a half court drill to a full court drill. And it's always interesting to see how kids and players can adjust to something that maybe is more skill development. And then we get into, let's say, like transition offense. So how do we adjust that level of play and that level of intensity compared to when we're just doing something that's, again, maybe just at a basket and it's not getting up and down the court. Like, can we focus and not make so many mental mistakes once we're in the full court setting?
Out there in terms of we're gonna cross over a cone. We're gonna put a defender out there, and you're gonna cross over a defender, and you're gonna have to make a decision in real time every single thing. So, like, we put Bones out there because we want you to be able to do. If we ever can get a shot drive pass decision into a drill, we're gonna work a shot drive pass decision with a real stimulus of a defender versus a fake stimulus that we make up in some certain way. So for us, it's like ton of 3-on-3 stuff, ton of 2-on-2 stuff. Even in a shooting drill, though, like there's going to be a closeout, and if the person's there, you got to make a decision to rip and go. When we play live 5-on-5, like last year we made a state tournament starting 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores, and a junior. We came off the bench with a freshman and 2 more sophomores. It was a super young team. Like, we did a 0.5 decision-making drill in practice that was basically like, if the whistle blew, it means you held the ball for more than 0.5 seconds without making a decisive decision. And you had to put it down on the ground. The opposing team picked it up and transitioned down the other way right away.
Time to recharge, read a book. Like, I'm big on motivational books and things of that nature. Or I'll tell you, so this is going to make me, I am a huge nerd. So let me be upfront about that. So when I would get super stressed about the season, I'm worried about how it's going. I would put the film aside for about 45 minutes, and I would put on YouTube and watch a battlefield tour, like a Civil War battlefield tour, or a historical documentary or something like that, just to kind of recenter myself. So that was kind of my recharge. That was kind of me putting my phone on the charger. That was recharging myself. It's just watching a historical documentary or something like that.
That's interesting. Like, did it just like reframe your like mindset or like what did watching that do for you?
So yeah, what it did, it would reframe my mindset.
Especially, like I said, especially in space when you're a little more spread out and you've got to get in somebody's way, so that's where way back then in that group work, when you're teaching them how to set a screen in the first place, you're focusing on, if it's chest if it's chest on their shoulder, or if it's setting a back pick, or being solid and not moving your feet, whatever you're emphasizing, be a headhunter. You've got to go get in. And a lot of times too, kids get hung up on you saying, okay, this person should be here, so go set the screen. And so then all of a sudden they're going to a spot instead of where that player is. I bet I'd be a really rich man if I had a nickel for every somebody go set a screen on air.
We really wanted to walk into this season running a full court press and going, in the half court running a man-to-man. It just did not work. And there were a multitude of factors for it. I believe our kids just weren't athletic enough to be able to run the press. They didn't understand a man-to-man as much as they should have. Even when we would try to work it into practices, it would look great on one day. The next day, it's like, oh my gosh, we're back to square one, aren't we? And the kids just openly came up to us about it. They're like, coaches, like, we can't We don't know how to do this, and it's really affecting our confidence in our play. So we just settled into a zone, sometimes alternating to a 2-3, a 1-2-2, 1-3-1, just trying to do anything we could to throw off the other team.
Closeouts. We'll have in a position where they're basically three of them. They're basically foot fire. They're on the whistle. They're going to close out, and the first thing we'll teach is we need them on the closeout. It's sprint, and then into chop. And we show them that as they're going into that chop stance to try to again break down before they get to the player. In the traditional pack line, they're throwing two hands high. So they'll get that sprint, chop, two hands high. But then you start to really work the skill, and so we'll do that, and we'll instruct the offensive players to keep the ball kind of in that shooting position. And so we'll really work on that closeout. And then the next thing we're talking about is as you close out, you have to protect your feet. Again, obviously, you're in the closeout, you're always in danger of getting there and exposing your feet and there being a straight line. And so that's a huge terminology for us. But the skill is this: once we feel like they're closing out the right way.
I will say that even then too, right? Like being on the women's side, people ask me because I did coach on the men's side very quickly before I realized I did want to be on the women's side. But I think specifically on the women's side, I equate it to the game of chess. I know some people have talked about it before, but like for me, the reason why I say that, I feel like I was on the women's side, the game itself is much more easily able to manipulate certain things versus on the men's side, what we just talked about. On the men's side, we're going to be able to have players that can break off a little bit easier, I think, than on the women's side. You know what I mean? And so I felt like it's a little bit of a disservice to continue to just tell them to go from here to there to there to there.
I was basically our quote unquote director of like scouting and preparation for the games. So I think, in my opinion, looking ahead to how they're going to guard us. So if we're playing a team that's specifically 2-3 zone, they play 2-3 zone every day, every game, we have to be really hammering down, these next 2 or 3 days before our game, our 2-3 offense. But I think also sprinkling in a little bit of man offense is beneficial just in case they switch it up. Because that's what I think. What I've noticed on my coaching journey is on our 2A level, it's a lot more strategic, and then on the 4A level, that what I've been at, it's a lot more scouting personnel, because that's where you see most of your D1 kids, your taller kids, your really athletic kids on that 4A level. So I think preparation for scouting kind of forms my mindset on practice plan, as well as how we did last game. What did we struggle with last game? What do we need to work on more? Might need to work on our screens.
All of our guys do everything. So we have one rotation that we have this layup sequence that we teach them, and it's just away from different spots on the floor, and we really emphasize one dribble layup, right? So rip through one dribble and get to the rim, and just talk about the footwork necessary and ripping through hard, how to do that. We do a station of ball handling. We'll do a station that we call it 2-on-2 football, which is ultimate frisbee is the best way to explain it with a basketball. So you're having to basket cut, L cut, step through and make a pass, and learning how to pass with both hands. All of our guys learn to shoot, I say 3 moves. A drop step is barely a move. You just pin him and you catch it and you lay it in. And then we learn the jump hook and the up and under, but we learn all that stuff without the dribble. So you learn to step through on the jump hook and the up and under, but all of our guys learn to do it. And then all of our guys do a shooting station as well.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.